Welcome to the Tiffany Butler TV show. I'm your host, Tiffany Butler, and today we have an exclusive, explosive show for you. We have a guest on our show that is going to have you questioning your personal relationships. Do you really know who is in your life and who they really are? Our guest today has lived a life that is going to blow your socks off. Who she is and what she's done has been captured in her book that you have a chance to really dive deep in and read. And not only do you get to read her book, but you get to see her story on the big screen. Now that's a big deal. So without further ado, so we can get to the nitty gritty and find out, ooh, what's this big story that we get to see on the big screen and read in this book? Oh, let's get her here. The one and only Angelica Robles. Let's get you here. Hi, Angelica.
Hi.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Girl,
thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. This is going to be fun because I have 1,000,001 questions because in that intro, I may have, I don't know, failed to mention that you're an undercover agent. Okay. That's the part that everyone has no idea that is beyond juicy, and why what your story is so big and gets to be on the big screen. You are going to have a movie made about your story. What do you think about that? Tell me how that even got to be. Like, what?
Yeah, I think it's been a year in the grind of trying to get this done, but I finally did sign a contract with Gold Tree Films out of LA. And Tim Chinakas and Bill Emmerman are the executives of this company. And the idea is that we are making a biopic of my life. And then we are going to spin that off in hopes of spinning the movie off into a streaming limited series show. So, yeah, because the story continues.
Oh, my goodness. That is absolutely phenomenal. See, I wanted to start the story with the end because we got to just grab a hold of our seat and
get you a cocktail.
I heard that. Everybody get your wine.
Yeah.
And you know me, my tequila, and let's just sit and really get to the nitty gritty, because as I mentioned, you're a mom, you were a married woman, you have a career and had a career for years, and you had some reveals come to you, which is what we get to really talk about today. Can you tell us, just for starters, go to the beginning of this story and why it's so captivating? You, first of all, you are absolutely beautiful. And to say you are an undercover agent, I immediately was like, say what? That's the coolest thing. How did that all come about? How long have you been an undercover agent? How long were you married and having children? Give us a little bit of a foundation here.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Chicago, in a rough neighborhood in Chicago. And really the motivation to join the government really happened when I was younger. I had a friend who was murdered, dismembered, and decapitated in Chicago. It was one of the most roughest and heinous crimes in Chicago history. So I was 15 at the time. So that really affected me mentally and emotionally. And so my decision to join the government really was out of anger, and I wanted to know why people do these things and why people kill other people. And so, I joined the government early on, and I became an undercover agent. I did corporate fraud for 2 years. And what people don't realize about being undercover is it's not fun. It looks fun in the movies, but it's not fun. It's very dangerous. You're being hunted, and you are hunting people. And my days were spent literally following people around and videotaping and taking audio of their conversations and their every move. Like I was following you. I was in the bushes watching you.
That's exactly what I'm imagining. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, you have to be this like chick that has like, different masks on, or, something that just you're pretending like you're someone else, and you're trying to kind of fit in to where no one is going to know who you are, but you're the one who is behind all of the action that is
That's exactly right. You have to fit into your surroundings. So it's not glamorous. It's not like 007 where, perfect makeup and hair. I mean,
right.
You don't shower, you smell, you're in a car for ridiculous amount, in a surveillance van for ridiculous amount of time. And for a woman, I talk about this in the book, think about how we go to the bathroom. For a woman, we were peeing and pooping in a bucket of sand. That, because like kitty litter, human kitty litter.
Right? Oh,
that's what you have to do,
Yeah. You wouldn't even imagine it like that. You would think that it's just like the movies, like you said. And that is so interesting. That's true. You probably have like hours on end where you would be out and you couldn't even see the light of day. So, so now you've been in this environment for years and years and years. You are, you've gotten married. Your husband knows what you do. Are you even allowed to share that? Like the agency, you say you worked in an agency, so for the government, like
I'm not. I the story is very compelling. I was blacklisted by Department of Defense. I can say that, for publishing the book. They were not happy for me publishing the book. So I was blacklisted. They did not say it was because of the book, but the timeline and the coincidence, I published in November of 21, and then January of 22, I was let go. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I say like, oh, yeah, they're blacklisted, get them out of, like, my blacklisting, I'm sure isn't the same as yours. Like,
so blacklisted means you are no longer to work for Department of Defense. You are completely blacklisted from this agency. So yeah, but keep in mind, there's a lot of agencies in the government. And because I had so much experience, we could say this here, I actually do still work for the government, but I have not shared at what capacity. So you'll have to read book 2 for that.
Okay, so we need to get to that nitty gritty. Okay, so we gotta cut to the chase. What would make the government blacklist you now because of what's in the book, because of what happened? Tell us the story.
I think one, because after the whole reveal, which we haven't spoken about, I went under federal investigation for 7 weeks, and I was given 2 options. The option was I, would cut ties with the man that I was with and married for 10 years together for 12 years, or they would blacklist me. The idea of publishing the book was never a good one. And so in publishing the book, I was taking a risk. And the risk was that I would lose my entire career. So, which I did.
Wow. Okay. So you went on and decided to put this book out. What happened between you and your husband?
So I had been approached to write the book by, so I had been on a podcast sharing my story of undercover and being an interrogator working for the government for 16 years. And I was approached to write a book by Hasmark Publishing Company, who is my publishing company. And they said, just write the book. I had thought about writing this book for many years, but because of fear, I said, no, this is not something that I can kind of dive in or do. So during COVID, everything was kind of falling apart, right? And it became the best time to write a book because at the time I was a contractor and I had 6 government contracts. I was traveling and everything had halted. So there was definitely time, right? There was time to write a book. So I wrote the book. And at the time, this is the crazy part, which I'll probably get into a little bit more into book 2. So
Okay.
at the time, I had gotten a contract to work with the DEA. I was working in their surveillance or their wire room. So if people don't know, I live in Houston. Houston has a high cartel and drug trafficking area. And so we have in the DEA, we have a wire room. In all DEA offices, there's wire rooms, but the one in Houston is predominantly one of the biggest ones because we're so close to Mexico. Anyway, long story short, I wrote the book. The book was pretty much a memoir of my life and what I had gone through as a child, gone through in the government, gone through doing undercover work, and just all the trauma that I had dealt with compiled in this book. And so before the book went to editing, the book was already done. My husband said, I want to read the book. And I said, okay, great. So he reads the book. And I come home from the DEA. I was working the night shift. And he tells me that he needs to talk to me because the book really triggered him. So in the book, I talk about my truth. I really just let everything out. I talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. And so he tells me that he has to tell me something. So he sits me down.
So wait. Before you go any further, you have these, you went real deep in the book talking about your childhood. You already shared that you saw things that happened in your younger youth with your friends, and you saw death, and all of these things kind of growing up and going through that put you in this place to write a book that had some really deep stories in it. And your husband said, hey, I want to read the book. Okay, so we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we are going to see what kind of effect that had on your husband and what he said next. So, really interesting. Wonder what that had to do with, what happened next in your life. So don't go anywhere. I know you're going to be on the edge of your seat when you hear this one. Don't go anywhere. We are going to be right back with Angelica, who's going to share her husband's reaction to what was in her book. We'll be right back to Tiff TV. Thank you. Hi, I'm Tiffany Butler, and I found that as I'm getting older, my skin is really changing. And one of my absolute favorite beauty products is this amazing primer and moisturizer in one by Bobbi Brown. I absolutely love it. It feels so good on the skin. One of my favorite parts is that it keeps my makeup on all day because of it being a primer. And the fact that it just has this beautiful, beautiful softness to it. Oh, this is what I live for. And the smell. It smells so good. This is a must-have, especially for us ladies getting a little bit older. Just makes me feel like I have that youthful skin again. I love it. Bobbi Brown, enriched base moisturizer and primer in one. You should definitely use this.
I've been using Bobbi Brown's face cream for a few weeks now, and I can already see a noticeable difference in my skin. It's so moisturizing and leaves my skin looking and feeling refreshed. I love how it makes me look and feel. Bobbi Brown is infused with nourishing ingredients and antioxidants. This cream will leave your skin feeling hydrated, refreshed and glowing. Say goodbye to dryness, fine lines, wrinkles, and hello to a more youthful and radiant complexion.
This is a must have.
Don't just take our word for
especially
it. Try it yourself and see the difference it can make. Available now at your local beauty store.
Welcome back to the Tiffany Butler TV show. I'm your host, Tiffany Butler, and we are back with this amazing story. Angelica, okay, so you just told us that you wrote the book, your husband asked to read the book, you told these stories about growing up and how you revealed these deep feelings that you've had, and now he says what?
He says, the book triggered me for me to tell you my truth. So I said, okay, what can possibly be his truth? This is somebody that I've known for 12 years. So he sits me down and he tells me, this is not good. This is not gonna be good. And so he says, my family has been part of the Mexican cartel.
What?
Yeah. So just to put in perspective, I pretty much married into a cartel family while being a government investigator, interrogating and investigating drug dealers, human traffickers, and everything under the sun. Yeah. I laugh about it now.
Right? What was the very first thing you thought to do? Like, what on earth were you thinking?
I was thinking about reaching for my gun and killing him and having the government cover it up. That was the first thought. I cannot lie. That was my first thought. But then, you know, I am a professional. I'm considered one of the best interrogators in the world. So then I told myself, I said, okay, separate wife from your mastery, separate wife and the emotion from the situation. And I calmed down and I said to myself, interrogate him, get as much information out as you possibly can. So for the next 2 hours, he literally just told me everything. And it was, I tell people, this was the most authentic that my husband had ever been in the 12 years of our relationship, because he was telling me his truth. So if the book did anything, it definitely did something in my own household. So he goes to tell me that his family had been in the drug business, and it wasn't very small. It was millions of dollars that they were selling. And he told me his uncle had transported $1 million worth of cocaine from Houston up to Boston, and his uncle was murdered, dismembered, and decapitated. So in that moment, can you imagine that same thing that happened to his uncle happened to my friend when I was 15? And it was now full circle back to my adult life. Yeah.
That is absolutely just mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And did you have the feeling of your safety? Like, all these years, they knew who you were, but you didn't know who they were.
Yeah. I don't really know the extent of the involvement other than what he tells me. His father had a vending company business here in Houston, and I know they were money laundering and washing money through the vending company business. I mean, that's what you do when you're involved, right? And so there was obviously there was transporting of drugs, and there was money exchanges. And I didn't know what the extent of it was. You know, I trusted him and I trusted in him. I was busy running a business, having babies, breastfeeding, working, cooking, taking care of the household, that I never thought about it. It wasn't something that I was thinking. I never thought that somebody with that type of background would marry a government investigator.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, so my question that I'm thinking is, you are a master interrogator. Did you not have any clue or see anything that would just make you think that there was the slightest bit that he would possibly be lying to you, or
Yeah,
that his eyes were blinking extra, or whatever
there was
facial
instances in regards to money, you know, the hiding of money and all that, but not to this extent, because in my mind, somebody that's involved in those type of activities or in that type of lifestyle doesn't go marrying somebody that works against what they're doing, which, if you ask me now, and I talk about it in the book, I think it was very selfish of him. He really wasn't thinking about me. He wasn't thinking about my career. He really wasn't thinking about our children. And it became something that, and I took a lot of blame on myself. Like, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? Like, how, when, who, what, where, when, why? And so I tell people, when you hear something of this magnitude, and I explain it like this in the book, I felt like I got hit by a train and I was peeling myself off of the train tracks because I had realized that I had survived. Because that's what it felt like. And after he told me everything that he shared, I told him, I said, you know, I have to report this. And he was aware that I had to report it, because a lot of people at this part of the story say, oh, you're not a ride or die. But I was like, here's the thing about a ride or die. When you marry into the cartel, the wives know you're involved in the cartel. That's the one piece that everybody forgets, is they know that this stuff is going on. They may not know the details of the activities, but they know what their husbands do or are involved in. I didn't. I really didn't have a choice. And he said, if he would have told me, then I would have never married him. And then that's correct. Of course not.
So he just put all of that aside, and he thought that you would never ever find out.
Yeah. In fact, his mother, who had been part of that lifestyle and was with the dad for 22 years, she said, I remember her words. She said, I don't know why you told her. We could have gone another 10 years without her knowing. I know.
You're kidding me. They really, so all the while, it was you were being fooled as if everything was normal, but they all around you knew. And how, of all people, you were not in a position to even have that type of lifestyle around you, because you know everything about those type of activities, activities. So
right.
What are you going to do about your career? You told him, I have to report you. He said, I know. Now what?
So I went ahead and reported it. I remember they even questioned why I waited 3 days. I did wait 3 days. And in those 3 days, I needed to kind of process everything. And I remember I was questioned why I waited those 3 days. I finally called my boss. My boss didn't know what to do with the information. So she called the higher ups, and the higher ups is the Pentagon. So ultimately they opened, yes, they opened an investigation on me. So that there was a federal investigation done on me for 7 weeks. And the reason, and this is what people don't realize, the government doesn't care what they were doing. They cared what I was doing, because I was the one that gave the oath to the government. So they needed to make sure that I purposely did not marry them to steal secrets or to go back and forth,
Right. Like if you were outside of the scenario and you saw this, you would be thinking the same thing. You would be questioning and interrogating that exact same way. So for those 3 days, were you kind of setting the mindset of, okay, this is what's going to happen to me. I know what they're going to ask. I know the position I've put myself in, and I get to sit in a place that I can fully answer and know what I want to do. Right?
Yeah. And so ultimately, I had to give a statement. I was polygraphed. I was investigated. I'm sure they went through calls and emails and texts and all that stuff to really clear me that I really didn't know and that I was not involved. And talk about somebody dropping the ball, because I get investigated every 5 years and he gets investigated every 5 years, because to work for the government at the capacity that I was working at, you need to have a top secret clearance. And so that means you're investigated every 5 years.
What? See, now I don't think us in the real world knew that. So
yeah, so somebody kept dropping balls.
I heard that. How did he pass all that? See, that was another part of it. How did the government not know? Like how?
There's theories. There's very many agencies. Somebody had to know. The crazy part about it all is that I was hired to do contract work in the wire room for the DEA. So I'm literally leaving the DEA wire room in Houston, going home to listen to what my ex-husband, then husband, was telling me. It's just a mental, just crazy turn of events. It's really like a movie.
Well, it's gonna be. You're like, it was a movie before it was a movie.
Right. And in that moment, I obviously I was going through turmoil, I was going through depression, and I was in the lowest point of my life, really watching my entire relationship and my marriage crumble. But what I realized was he really was telling his truth, but I wasn't going to take on that. I wasn't going to take on his truth and just hide it. Can you imagine that? Or there needs to be some consequences in this 12-year lie, is what I called it, because the magnitude of the lie was pretty bad. Not only did it put me at risk, the kids at risk, and a lot of people thought, what if the cartel comes after you? And my answer was, I have been dealing with cartel members for as long as I can remember. And if they were going to do anything to me, it wasn't going to be me, because if I end up dead in a ditch, I was going to be all up on CNN, former undercover government investigator dead in a ditch. That's too much noise for the cartel. So, yes. Yeah.
That is actually, that stands out big time. That is a big deal, because that is another question. Why didn't they just take care of you, or go to him and say, what is she mixed in our mix for? That's too close. That's too close to home. Is she, does she knows too much? Why, how did this get connected? But then on the other hand, it's like, did our government know who they were already and use you to kind of be a part of like the tease, or, get in there and maybe know a little bit more?
Definitely not, because I knew nothing about it.
You clearly knew nothing, because you would have been like, hello, guess why? I don't want to be the little carrot here. So we're women. We have love in our hearts, and our relationships mean so much. How were you affected by that part? Like, was your heart broken? How did you feel about the relationship part?
Yeah, I mean, I was completely destroyed. I talk about the person who I was in that relationship was completely demolished. It was killed. It was killed off, because as women, we marry and we expect our husband to cherish us and take care of us and not lie to us. And we give these vows. And I tell people before I even walked down the aisle, he had already broken all those vows. And the crazy part about this whole thing was his father and I never got along. I always disliked his father. And I remember he would tell him, don't marry her, don't marry her, don't marry her. The day of my wedding, I tried to call the wedding off. And my best friend's like, no, he's perfect. So that was my gut instinct telling me, do not marry this man. But I went ahead with the lavish wedding and all this that we had going on, and I married him. So talk about marrying the enemy.
Right? Oh, sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah, practically, pretty much. Yeah. Can you imagine sleeping next to somebody for 12 years and not knowing their truth, not knowing who they were? And I take responsibility in my relationship as well. But I also talk about, can you imagine, not saying that what he did was wrong, but having compassion, because I did have to forgive him. He is the father of my children. We do share children. And I thought to myself, can you imagine what he must have gone through holding this secret for so long that finally when he read my book, he could not hold it inside any longer. So if I never wrote this book, if COVID never hit, I probably would have still been in that marriage. He wouldn't have been here.
That is what is absolutely blowing my mind. Think about that. Think about that. You being a master interrogator, you got him to speak. You got him to speak. Through your book, you interrogated him. You got him to confess. Yeah. And that was your intention of the book, but it was able to do that because you're so good at what you do.
I love the way you put it. Because,
right?
Yeah, because for many, it's been 2 years since all this went down. And in fact, it's going to be 2 years in next week. That he told me this. And it's crazy because, I am a master of this, but when it comes to your personal dealings or your personal life, it's at a totally different level. And I always tell people is he grew up in this life. This was part of his life. This was normality. And, smuggling and money and drugs and all this was part of his upbringing. And so it might sound crazy, but it was what may be abnormal for us was normal for them. So that's why they didn't see it as being anything bad. Like, this isn't bad. And I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't be bad if I wasn't working for the government for 16 years.
Hello. That is so interesting. It's like when that lifestyle becomes a part of someone, they can't see outside of that, and lying becomes a habit. And that habit where, it's just like a paradigm, it's like their belief system. And it stands out like a sore thumb to people like us. Wow. So we're going to take a break. And when I come back, I want to talk about how this amazing story is captured in your book and then in turn being turned into a movie. Let's talk about the book and the movie, how people can get the book, when the movie's coming out, and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to be back in a minute, and don't go anywhere. This is just such a great, compelling story that is so fun. Whew. We know that these stories gets unbelievable. So when we come back, we're going to get a little bit more information, and we're going to see when we get to see this on the big screen. So we'll be back to the Tiffany Butler TV show in just a moment.
Get ready to experience the thrill of driving with Nissan's latest car models, now available at Rock Hill Showroom. At Rock Hill Showroom, we are proud to offer the complete range of Nissan's finest car products. With a wide range of models to choose from, you'll find the perfect car to suit your lifestyle and budget. Experience the innovative design, advanced technology, and superior performance that Nissan is known for. Whether you're in the market for a compact city car or a powerful sports car, we have you covered. Don't just take our word for it, hear what Tiffany Butler TV show have to say.
Hi, welcome to the Tiffany Butler TV show. I'm your host, Tiffany Butler, and I am here at Rock Hill Nissan, sitting in a salesman's desk. Now, I get to sell a car to a beautiful female. Does it seem different to buy a car as a female by yourself without getting daddy's help or your husband's help? Do you feel comfortable doing that all by yourself? You know, we have power, we have strength, and we have the ability to make our own decisions and feel comfortable even in what has been known to be a man-dominated environment. We're going to show you exactly why, being here at Rock Hill Nissan, that you are in good hands. Stay tuned.
Visit Rock Hill Showroom today and take a test drive of your favorite Nissan model. Our friendly and knowledgeable sales team is ready to assist you and answer any questions you may have. Drive home your dream Nissan car today, from Rock Hill Showroom.
Welcome back to the Tiffany Butler TV show. I'm your host, Tiffany Butler, and we are here with Angelica. Wow. You know, there's like 900 questions I have for you, but I really know I want to hear about the book, because this is really this is what started all of this. And I know you have a second book from the first book. And I tell us a little bit about the book. And I know you pulled the book back once all this kind of came out to add some chapters to it. But now that it's, you know, the government's involved and we got now cartel stories, like what happened with the publishers?
Yeah, so the book, keep in mind when my ex read the book was already done. The book had already been sent for editing. And so I called the publisher back and I said, I need the book back. I'm adding 2 more chapters to the book because this is part of my life and I'm adding it into the book. They almost had a heart attack because they said, you are under federal investigation and you cannot write about this. And I said, oh, I'm going to write about it. And so they said, okay. So they got their attorneys involved and they said, I needed to convince my husband to sign an authorization giving me permission to write the book, to write his story in the book. And sure enough, he signed it. I told him, I don't want anything. I don't want any of this hidden money, whatever, all this accounts that they had, offshore accounts, whatnot. I said, just sign this authorization, because I knew that I had to put this story in the book, because it was like the end of the beginning, if that makes any sense. Because
absolutely
right. And so he signed it. Until this day, he swears he didn't sign it, but I think it's because of the moment of the emotions and everything were running high. We were going through a lot of turmoil. He signed it. So that's why I was able to tell in the book all the stories that he told me. So
oh
yeah.
my goodness. So that leads me to this. So if he could tell you those stories, then you had permission to tell the stories in the book.
Right.
Everyone, do you feel safe? Is he safe now? And are you in a position to where you don't have to look over your shoulder? I mean, how do you feel in that sense?
I at first I was terrified. I mean, at first I was terrified. I brought the kids to my mom's house. I was over here with my parents, but your mind goes through so much because you don't know where it's going to end up. But what I remembered was from all my years of training and all my years of dealing with cartel members is that they move where the money moves. And it did not, all of this revelation did not cost the government to go interrogate them or go investigate them because they don't care for them. I was the one that gave the oath to the government. And cartel investigations go on for years and years and years of compiling evidence and surveillance and footage and, text messaging and wiretaps and all that stuff. And I don't know the extent of which they were involved. A lot of people think that they weren't involved anymore. I don't know if they were still involved, but there was always a lot of money. And so, there's different projects, or there's different roles that people play with the cartel. It's not only the smuggling of drugs, but it's also, the embezzling of money and the covering up. So these are all stories that I just haven't heard or haven't gotten the truth behind, right? And so for the government to go after them, it's almost like somebody said something, but then there's no evidence.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I get it. So that makes sense. It's like hearsay. And
Right.
without the proof, you can't necessarily get to.
Right. You can't indict anybody or charge anybody without substantial proof and without substantial evidence, So he could have said everything that he said. And he, a lot of the stories were back when he was a child. There was, money and there was drugs and all that. And, the strippers and all the crazy life that cartel members do. But yeah, the government didn't care because I was the one that gave the oath to the government. So I was the enemy.
Right. So you were the one who is gonna get obviously in punished and through the 7 weeks of interrogation. And 7 weeks of interrogation, was that?
It's a long time.
Yes. Were you taken away from your family, taken away from the kids? And can you talk anything about that?
Yeah, I was, and I had to, give a statement, a verbal and a written. And I'm going to paint this picture to people. Imagine you being on the other side of the table. Like the tables have turned, like literally. And now you're on the other side. And I'm high level of interrogation skills. So I'm sitting there like, you're really going to ask me that? Like, did you know? Of course I didn't know. Don't you see me? I've been crying for the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. But they have to treat everyone as such. So
did you know the people who interrogated you?
I did not know because it was no.
Good, right?
Yeah.
You would take your friend and go, "What are you talking about?" Right.
But they were nervous because they were dealing with somebody that does this in their sleep. But here's the crazy part is, and maybe this is what people say, love is blind. It was definitely so blind, right? But yeah.
Like your heart.
I knew something was up. I just didn't know it was that.
Right. Did you think, is he having an affair or something like that ever?
I tell this to people. I wish he would have said that he was having an affair with a Starbucks barista or something. It would have been so much easier to deal with.
Oh my gosh.
And even when
yes.
Yeah. When I went to divorce care while I was going through my divorce. For those that have been through a divorce, know that there's classes that you go through. It's called divorce care. So I'm sitting at the divorce care and everybody's talking about their infidelity and everybody's looking at me like, it's your turn to tell your story. And I'm like, are you guys ready for my story? Because it's going to make your situation a lot better. Like you guys are going to leave here feeling super good about your situation. And sure enough, every time I tell the story, people's mouths are on the ground and they're like, you're right. My situation is not that bad. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know. I could just imagine they're like, oh, okay. I guess that's not that big of a deal. You're like, so was your husband in the cartel? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That is so good. Oh, wow. So you in the book. So tell us the title of the book. What's behind the cover of the book? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the title of the book is called Through These Brown Eyes, pretty much a memoir of my life, starting from childhood, leading up to what we discussed, my adulthood, and practically everything imploding in my face. The book is, it's behind me. I don't know if you could see it. You can get it on Amazon. I also did the Audible. You can get the Audible on Audible or Amazon as well. I did the Audible in my own voice, so I read you the book. And yes, and it's a good book. It's a quick read. The cover of the book was inspired by Silence of the Lambs, the movie from the 1990s. And Clarice, she used to be a government interrogator that used to interrogate murderers and terrorists and whatnot. And so the cover of the Silence of the Lambs is her face with a dragonfly in her mouth. So we kind of did a rendition of that for my book, which was, you know, a young Hispanic girl with a yellow flower in her eye signifying hope. So yeah.
That is so cool. I love that. Well, we have that on the screen here. We're showing the title of the book and where you can get the book and the cover. So that is so cool. Everyone go out and get this book. Now, the book is being turned into a movie, and we got to give the reveal of this being a movie. All right. Who do you think's going to play you?
So we are going to, everybody ready for this? This is so exciting.
I know.
Right. So we have a couple of names out there, but we are hoping that Selena Gomez will play me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be so
It
cool.
would be amazing. Yeah. She's had a lot of ups and downs and turmoil in her life. So she could just fit right in. So she's sexy, she's sultry, she's Hispanic, so she could bring all that spice. Yeah. And then we also threw out Mila Kunis out there because she's just a great actress and she's just amazing. Yeah.
She would be phenomenal too. She's so pretty too. They're both gorgeous. Like you. They fit in. Oh my goodness. I don't know who I want more. I can't wait. We're gonna see.
So I hope they watch this and they start thinking about it. But yeah, Selena Gomez would definitely be our first pick. So
that would be so cool. Okay, we're gonna get this to Selena. All right, we're gonna definitely get this. At least that for sure. That cuts. Come on, Selena.
Yes, we send her a signed book.
Yes, totally. Right. I love that. Oh my word. So by the time they start, they get the cast and all this when do you think this is going to be out? Like, what is the projection?
This is when I spent all last year trying to get this contract, going in front of the right people, going to the events, going to the red carpets. My life pretty much changed because I was running after, I was going to the events where the producers and the directors are at, right? To be seen and heard. And what I'm learning about the movie industry is there's so many steps to it. And, there's casting, there's the screenplays, and then there's the investors, and then there's a permits, and then there's getting into production. And so it takes a while. So I would say the project is going to be about a year to 2 years, just because we're shopping around for the best deal. We have the production and we have the direction. And so now we just have to put it all together. So yeah, it's exciting, but it's scary. But talk about learning about a whole industry that I'm just not aware of, so I am the executive producer on the project. So I will be hands-on the entire project.
You will.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is a totally new job. That's a different job.
It really is. That's why I tell people I'm an executive producer, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'll let you know when I find out.
No, I'll let you know how that job goes.
Right.
That is so cool. Speaking of jobs though, so are you still doing your real job on this, just on the side or part-time, or did you just retire?
I am still engaged at some capacity with the government, and I will probably share more about that in book 2. But other than that, that's all you get.
But can I be the first to let it out?
Yes, you can. I promise.
Okay, good. We got to be the first to let it out on the Tiffany Butler TV show, book 2, and really what engagement you have as far as being undercover and all your just badass girl stuff. I love it.
Thanks.
We just think it's the coolest stuff that you do, and to be you and what you've done, and to come through all of that, and to be as strong as you are, where you are going, and all these amazing opportunities that have come before you. I mean, we're just proud. We're proud. I'm so just beyond proud of you as a woman, standing up for us women and going for it and going for your dreams. Like, this is what we stand for here in this show. No matter what obstacle comes before you, that's what you did. And we love that. And that's what the message gets to be in this show. And every single person on the planet that watches this will get that from what you shared with us today.
Thank you.
So this has been so fun. Like I said, I could talk forever and ever. I'm going to come. You said next week is the 2-year anniversary, right?
Yeah, that I found out that it all, yeah.
I think I might just come to Houston. We need to just, share a bottle of tequila, have a couple of margaritas, and do a little celebration. How's that?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, we'll do that. This has been fantastic. This has been absolutely fantastic and great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's a privilege for me. Oh, it was a privilege for me. I really, really am so happy that you did this. And as I said, every person on the planet is going to hear your story and is going to buy your book, right? On Amazon, guys.
On Amazon, yeah.
Get
it next day on Prime.
That's right. Prime order it so it comes next day, and jump into this book, and you will be inspired, and you will be motivated, and you will in turn get your truth out and be able to stand in your power. So there is our message today. So, like I said, once again, thank you so much, Angelica, for being here. Thank you all for watching the Tiffany Butler TV show, and we will see you next time.